Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 1171 of Toronto Mic'd, proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. StickerU.com. Create custom stickers, labels, tattoos, and decals. Palma Pasta. Fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees. The Yes, We Are Open podcast, a Moneris podcast production. The Advantaged Investor podcast from Raymond James, Canada. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. Ridley Funeral Home. Pillars of the community since 1921. Canna Cabana. The lowest prices on cannabis. Guaranteed. And Sammy Cone Real Estate. Ask Sammy any real estate questions at sammy.cone@properlyhomes.ca. Joining me today, making his Toronto Mike debut, taking 85th overall in the 1996 draft, is Justin Davis. Welcome, Justin.
Thanks for having me.
How was the commute here today? Yesterday we had this rain, and in some parts of the GTA, I understand it was like snowy and icy, but here by the lake, it was never more than rain. But how was your drive here tonight?
It was great. My in-laws are from Etobicoke, but it's funny how far Etobicoke goes. They're at Princess Margaret and Islington.
Oh, so, that's like central Etobicoke, because you got Rexdale way above that, and
right.
I'm way south of that. But yeah, everything west of the Humber River in Toronto is Etobicoke, so it goes a long way.
Oh, I learned something new as a Guelphite today.
So you live in Guelph?
Yes.
I'm trying to think. Okay, I'm going to ask you this off the top. I was going to save it. And then right after I ask you this, you can crack open that Great Lakes beer and tell me your GLB story. I literally just came from the GLB Brew Pub where I met with a couple of FOTMs, YYZ Gord and Cam Gordon. But in your career, and we're going to cover your career, which goes from, in fact, I'll run this down real fast, but like it's Hamilton Red Wings and Cambridge and Kingston and Sault Ste. Marie and Ottawa and Western Ontario, University of Western Ontario, then UHC say it for me.
Neuwied.
No, we'll talk about that one. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Tilsonburg Vipers, Dundas, Real McCoys. Like here you are, 85th overall pick by the Washington Capitals. Did you ever score a goal against a goalie you might have faced in the OHL and maybe even when you were at University of Western Ontario? Mark Gowan? Does that name mean anything to you?
Like I say, a lot of the time I know the name, but trying to place stories, and I have trouble remembering my kids' birthdays sometimes. So,
I know
so
that,
taking
Joe.
it back to then.
Okay. On that note, I'll clean that up in post. Just kidding.
Yeah.
But why don't you crack open? What do you got there? You got a pale ale, right? What is that? Is that a 666?
I got the GLB Pale Ale 666.
Crack that open on the mic. Okay, not on the mic. You're off mic there. But enjoy. What was your Great Lakes story before we dive into your book that you wrote?
Well, my wife and I, the last 7 years, have run this charity hoedown with 100 of our closest friends, and we were looking for a beer supplier this year, and someone reached out and said that the Great Lakes Brewery is one of the best, so that's who supplied our keg this year. So it's come full circle.
I love this story. Okay, so I told you I literally just came from the GLB Brew Pub where I was chatting with Peter Bullitt, who his family owns Great Lakes Brewery, and you're telling me, so you reached out to GLB and said you were doing this charity thing and they came through?
Yeah, they were great. A friend of mine, Ryan Christie, gets them delivered to his house all the time, so he brought it down for me. So it was we'll use them again next year.
Okay, so this is wonderful to hear because as I told Peter Bullitt earlier today, I won't drink any other beer. It's Great Lakes. So when you leave here today, Justin, you're going to leave with some fresh craft beer from Great Lakes Brewery.
Fantastic.
Do you, while I'm on this topic, do you enjoy Italian food?
It looks like I'm going to enjoy Palma's Kitchen after
you're
the
good at
podcast
this.
today.
You should have your own podcast. Okay. You're not leaving here without a frozen lasagna from Palma Palma's Kitchen, which is from Palma Pasta, palmapasta.com. How many kids you got?
Got 3 kids. I got a 16-year-old that'll eat that on his own, and the 13 and 11-year-old will mop up the rest.
You'll be shocked, man, because I got a big family too, and there's a lot of food in that large meat lasagna. You look a bit young to have a 16-year-old. Like, I'm impressed here. Maybe I've misjudged your age, but here, regardless, let me tell people right off the top. You wrote a book. I don't know if I could read a book, but I read your book. It's called Conflicted Scars, An Average Player's Journey to the NHL. And I read this thing, and I've got like lots of questions about hockey culture and your adventures. You know, again, I mentioned off the top, you were drafted by the Washington Capitals, but did you ever play an NHL game?
No, I did not. And times were different back then where you went to the main camp and people signed for a lot bigger deals. Working in the OHL now, there's a lot of kids that sign contracts for $250,000 over 3 years, and at your first contract, they sign a lot more people, it seems like, and they play a little bit less. But back then, you had to earn your stripes to get your game in. And unfortunately, like the book says, I found out early that I just wasn't good enough to make it to that level.
You're one of those great players, but just not quite enough to get to the big show. But again, spoiler alert, because we're going to kind of walk through some of your career here, because I love this book. Again, people can pick up this book right now, Conflicted Scars. But how close were you? Like, I know it's hard to gauge this, but how close were you to, you know, playing in the big show, the NHL?
Well, I think when I got drafted by the Washington Capitals, they asked me to come down for a summer in 1996. So that was the first time where you really I was working out and skating every day with guys that were my heroes at that time. And it seems old to talk about it, but it was like Peter Bondra and Joe Juneau, and
right.
I was a big Oilers fan. I remember Bill Ranford was in the trainer's room and just staring at him. But when you get out on the ice, you think you're a good player, and then you just see these guys that you've never heard of that are just so talented from Finland and Sweden, and they played U.S. college. And we get trapped so many times in the junior game and think that we're really, really good. And but there's just so many players out there.
So your last taste, now I don't even know, do they pay you money or do they pay you in Great Lakes beer? But the Dundas Real McCoys, like that's the last time you played competitive hockey, right?
Yeah, and that was, you get paid, there's a legal amount that they can pay you per game. But I think the thing with that was when we won the Allen Cup, which is one of the oldest trophies in Canada for amateur senior hockey, we had 14 ex-NHL players on our team. So when you're transitioning from pro hockey, just the fact you can sit in a dressing room with guys and tell stories, and it's, I say it's kind of like weaning your way out of hockey because it's such a tough transition.
Wow.
When people talk about leaving the game, I think the toughest part is just that camaraderie and the teammates in the dressing room. So that was the best part about Dundas.
Okay, so we'll get to that because that's kind of how you wind down your competitive hockey career here. But I will just point out that there's news, I guess a couple of weeks ago, maybe last week, that the Real McCoy, this is a burger joint in Scarborough. So you're talking to me in Etobicoke right now, but on the other side of the city, the Real McCoy is closing up. They had like a good run. Like this is a really popular burger joint in Scarborough. In fact, I had a guy named Ripken on the show, and Ripken worked at Mojo Radio. Do you remember 640 Mojo Radio?
Yep.
Okay. I'm excited to hear you remember that. Well, we're similar vintage, but he I guess there was a contest back in, I'm going to say this is 2002, and Ripken declares that the Real McCoy is the best burger in the city, okay? And the Real McCoy still have this huge poster on the wall. Like it's actually made of cloth, which basically has Ripken like announcing that they're the best burger in the city. Like that's been there for 20 years. And I know I talked to Ripken, who's an FOTM like yourself, buddy. You're a friend of Toronto Mike, so welcome to the club, Justin. Okay. But I was chatting with Ripken on Facebook, and he's like, he's making a call because they're shutting down the Real McCoys. I think they're going to build condos or something. And Ripken wants that cloth poster thing that's on the wall right now. Like Ripken wants it. So we're going to try to see if we can get Ripken his Real McCoy's best burger in the city poster. This is the kind of stuff that's going on here, Justin. Okay, so you're not an NHL player, although now you'd probably be retired anyway. But you do have a great career. What is your profession?
I'm a high school teacher right now, so I've been teaching in Orangeville. I teach physical education at ODSS, and been there 14 years. So
Good for you.
just came from coaching a high school hockey game today, and
Okay.
right to the show. So yeah, hockey's still in my blood.
So my cousin Mark Gowan, who I asked you if you knew him off the top, says he played for I think he was playing for the Belleville Bulls, and then he played for the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds, and then he ended up playing for the Guelph, not the Storm, the University of Guelph.
Yeah.
And now he's a teacher too. So it seems like it's a good profession for you guys who can't quite make the show.
I think what happens is when you get into pro hockey and you see these guys that are now it's so young, but 34, 35, 36 and are still kicking around the league. And when hockey ends, they have nothing. So for those of us that were drafted or saw what it was like, we decided to go to Canadian University of Hockey because it's a great outlet and get our education. And then like I did, go overseas and play in Germany or pursue your dream. Like some guys have made the NHL coming out of University of Hockey.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like Mike Ridley did that. I feel like there's a bunch of guys who came out of the Canadian University. So we're gonna walk through your career in hockey, and this is gonna be awesome. But again, spoiler alert, because we'll get to him later. But how is Brian Kilrea doing? Like he wrote the foreword to this book, but he's got to be pushing 90. How's he doing?
It's funny when I played for him, I thought he was 90 years old, and then I ran into him in the rink about 15 years ago, and he looked the exact same. And when I called him about doing the foreword for the book, it was the same guy. I said some other.
He's a legend, right?
Well, I looked him up on Canada 411, and his number was there. His wife answered the phone, and it's the same old. So yeah, Brian's is smoking a cigar and having a couple of beers each day, and still makes it to 90. I don't know what's going on with his body.
And he's a Hockey Hall of Famer, right?
Correct.
Wow. Like this is a legend, and we'll get to, because you played for him in Ottawa, right? So we'll get to Brian, the killer, right? I say when I hear killer, I think Doug Gilmour,
Right.
but no, that's Brian Kilrea.
Yeah. No, you got it.
We'll get to that. Hey, so again, I'm not trying to jinx Brian because he's doing well and whatever he is, 88 years old or whatever. But so this is not. Hopefully, this doesn't have anything to do with Brian's good health. I hope he lives to be 108. But I am going to give you a gift from Ridley Funeral Home. This is a flashlight from Ridley Funeral Home, our local funeral home here in New Toronto. So that's a little something for you to keep you safe.
Perfect. Thanks.
Now, Justin, my kids, are your kids good at hockey?
Yeah, my son played AAA hockey to his 16, but he's transitioned into, he plays baseball for the Great Lakes Canadians in London, and that's the route that he's going. So, yeah, I coached him all the way up, and he had a love for the game for sure.
See, I got my two sons who played hockey. They're basically house leaguers. Like they love to play. They're house leaguers, but neither had the. Well, one's only 8, so we'll see if things change. But my almost 21-year-old, like he never had the talent or the drive to do anything more than house league. So I was kind of like, I felt like I dodged a bullet maybe, because when you play house league, it's the same arena every weekend and it's the same like time slots and stuff. You don't have to travel with the team or whatever. But I mean, there's a lot of parents, listening right now to us, and their kids are dreaming of NHL glories. So I would tell these parents that if they want to get a taste of hockey culture and kind of see how it went for you, that your book is a must read. Like, what made you write this book?
Well, I think I'd been going through a couple of health problems a couple of years ago, and my kids, I hid a lot of this stuff, so my jerseys were in the back of the closet, and I had Memorial Cup ring and university ring, and that stuff's kind of hidden in my sock drawer. And I thought one day I'll just write down some great stories for my kids and basically tell them how great my career was and how great hockey was, just like you're talking about, glorify it. And then when I started to write things down, I realized that there's a lot of things, like you said, my son's 16, and things that happened to me at that time moving away from home, and things I encountered that I just realized just weren't right as an educator and as a dad. And so the more I wrote, it turned into a book. So I meant to write something down for a couple weeks, and in 4 months I had a memoir.
So I'm going to start maybe by just referencing that Akim Aliu came out with like his real talk, I call it, but basically his experiences in hockey, and there's been some ramifications from that. But in your experience playing hockey all those years, and we mentioned all those different leagues, and we'll walk through it, but this kind of like he talks about being called the N-word and stuff like that. Like, did you witness anything that blatant?
Yeah, and I talk about it in the book. I think a lot of the time, like every Indigenous player I played with was called Chief, and you hear the N word, but I think there's just so much power to coaches and general managers back then, and so you don't say anything, or you end up risking your career. So it's not until I step outside the game and I see the lack of diversity and equity within inside the game, and we didn't know what was right and what was wrong. And it's easy to say that now, but Akeem's right. And if you go watch a hockey game, it's still a very white sport and affluent as well. So he's not wrong, and that's the platform I've had for this book. And we're starting some programs in my local area.
Because you kind of reference this off the top, and you talk about your initial guttural reaction to Akeem kind of spilling the tea here, and your initial guttural reaction is like, hey, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, right? Like
right. So, I mean, his first incident, we had something called the hot box. It's a junior hockey. That's a tradition where you basically 6 guys get naked in the bathroom. They turn the heat on and you're in it for 3-4 hours. And that's just something that I thought was a normal tradition, and we did. And you're nervous about getting in there. And then when you get out, you feel like you've accomplished something, and now you're a veteran, and you know it's not right, but you did it. And he was one of the first people to stand up and say, no, I'm not doing it. And the next day he was cross-checked in the face, and he lost 6 teeth and broke part of his orbital bone. And you're thinking, like, this isn't normal behavior towards somebody. I mean, if you say no, it doesn't give someone a right to like break your face with their stick, right? So when I look back on it, it really made me examine my role and where I stood up. I talked in the book about I had a friend playing hockey in Germany that was had bananas thrown on the ice, and when he tells the story and explains it to me, you're just at that time you're almost emotionally indifferent to it, because you're like, well, okay, but you just wish you'd stood up at certain times, and it's just something that we live with, and something we realize now that's not normal.
Do you, like, is that? I mean, I guess you wouldn't know because you've been out of the game a little bit here, but is that still going on? Like, I mean, we talk about the '90s like it's the 1920s. You know what I mean? Like in the '90s, people were throwing bananas and using the N-word. Like, this blatant racism. Like, I hope it's not still happening, but I don't know if it's not.
Well, Hockey Canada just released a report 2 weeks ago that last year there's 500. I think. Don't quote me on the number, it was around 573 racial slurs that were thrown out that were caught by refs and from the GTHL and different areas that were caught, and people are suspended. So now the suspension's an automatic 5-game suspension, but I was on an interview the other day, and they're asking if we think that's just. And I mean, if you hit someone from behind, I think you get 3 games, but if you throw out a racial slur, you get 5 games. So I mean, we're making steps, but at the same time, these are serious things, and catching people saying it on the ice is difficult, right?
Yeah, you know, you got your racism there, and then you have what. Like, I was in the schoolyards in the 90s, okay? I didn't play competitive hockey. I played at Swansea Hockey Association, Rennie Park. We played house league, but the homophobic slurs were, like, plentiful. Like, the F word as a insult was flying around in the 90s.
Right, but when I think for me, this has brought a lot of awareness. I've talked to some former professional baseball players and basketball players, and the one thing they always say is that we moved away when we were 14 or 15, and we played with 20, 21-year-olds. So when you talk about that language, I sat in the dressing room and thought everything the 20, 21-year-olds was the truth, and it was the gospel of hockey. So you don't question things. So language is something that was learned, and someone asked me, how do you take it out of the game, or how do you change it? This is a long process. This is a 10, 15-year process, but we have to start at younger levels with a culture where this is unacceptable. And you know what? There's strides being made, but we've still got a long way to go.
So you mentioned the hot boxing, which I learned about in your book, by the way. And there's other talk about hazing. One thing that's prevalent is this hazing, this hockey hazing fascination with nudity. Do you know what I mean? Like you tell a story about, and I'll close your kids' ears. I'm going to talk about how like your dick and the drink thing. You know that story you talk about at the like what is it with these hazing rituals in hockey and getting these rookies naked?
Well, I think you're just broken down. Like I said, at 14, 15, you know that that's what's going to happen. And I played junior C when I was 14 years old, and then you played junior B, and then you played junior A, and then you get to the OHL. So by the time you get to these junior levels, you're just so used to it. I mean, I had to walk into a grocery store with just a jock on and buy a case of a pop for a mix for a rookie party. And you gotta, I mean, if I asked I'm a teacher. I mean, if any of those kids were asked to just go naked into a store, they'd say you're ridiculous. But after 2, 3, 4, 5 years of it, you're so broken down. And it's funny. One of the last Hockey Canada reports, they had someone on the record with our government say that nudity is part of the game. As long as it's with your teammates, you're naked 50, 60% of the time. That's okay. And it just like, you're reading it and you're thinking like, this is part of the problem. People still think this is a reality. And to your answer, I always talk about, even in the book, I say this, we called people that didn't play hockey civilians. Okay. And we're like, oh, I was at a party with civilians. And I tell these stories to people and they look at me like, you like reading the book. That's not normal, man. Like, what are you talking about? And then you realize like, I'm the abnormal one.
Well, because I'm reading your book and you're talking about you're drinking this beer, right? But you find out that beer, like moments before you're drinking it, it had someone else's genitals like in that drink of beer, right? And you're only 15 years old. I should point out, like, I mean, you're very young. You're very dumb, and basically there you are drinking this beer. Someone's genitals were in it, and then you're at the Breezy Corners Motel.
Highway 5 and Highway 6. Yeah.
Wow.
But like, I think the one thing with the book is the feedback I'm getting from people, and I thought I'd get a lot of blowback telling these stories, and people will be upset. But I've had so many former teammates and people I played against call and reach out, and I realized that the stuff that happened to me is the tip of the iceberg. And what happened to other people is people are still kind of embarrassed and haven't talked about, and they are now like telling their wives or telling other people or reaching out. And I've become almost a counselor of sort for people. But you realize that even though that doesn't sound lucky when you tell the story, I think I was lucky compared to what happened to a lot of people.
But even like I mentioned, Mark Gowan off the top, who played in the OHL, like I still remember the stories he'd tell about these hazing rituals. These rookie hazings in hockey are just like unacceptable looking at it through the 2022 lens.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? I said, when you go to a job and someone asks you to go get a coffee for them or go out and do some initial jobs, is kind of a show your role and learn the way of the company. I mean, I have no problem with certain hazing things like help bring a hockey bag in, bring the stick rack in, be the one to pick up the pucks as a first year player. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But like you said, it's just this natural affiliation to the nudity and harming people, which it's unacceptable. And so the hazing aspect, initiation, I think there's still a role for some initiations, safe and kind of 2 people to a bus, and then when you're in your 4th year, you got your own seat, things like that, no problem. But it's just these other things that you're right. It's something nobody else goes through.
So if I were to say to you, like, hey, what are your memories of when Joe Carter touches them all at the 93 World Series?
Yeah, we were running naked around the Breezy Corners Hotel, and I think it was the first drinks I had, and didn't know what was going on, but each person has their own memories, right?
You know, hey, that's what happened to you, man. So we talk about Joe Carter's home run, and you remember, being 15 years old at the Breezy Corners Motel, and you had just downed your first 10 beers, I guess. But, it could have been worse because you drank that beer and someone else's genitals were in it, but it could have been a lot worse. But, hey, we won the World Series, man. That was the second back-to-back, so they can't take that away from us. All right, Justin, here. So again, we're going to just hit some high points here. I'm just going to remind everybody that if you are interested in this book, it's called Conflicted Scars, An Average Player's Journey to the NHL. One thing, though, average players aren't drafted into the NHL, right? Like, I feel like you're above average player.
Yeah, and someone else asked me about that, but when you look back at your career, and I think of my role in the OHL, I might have been an above average in the OHL, but when you get to pro hockey, I think... I view my career differently. I feel like I could have been better, and I see so many other players. So what I wanted parents to know is, like you talked about earlier, so many people dream of my kid's going to be the next Mitch Marner and all these things. But as an average guy in the OHL that went through pro hockey, these are the things that happened to me. And this is what it's like. And this is the mental toll and the anxiety. And and the things that come out of playing at that level.
So let's get you to the OHL, and I'll tell you as a reader of your book, nothing pissed me off more in this book than you at the 1994, not the 1995, but you're at the 19. Can you just give us again, all the details are in the book, but you were at the 94 OHL draft, right?
Right. So I grew up in a small town. So back then, you tell parents now that you didn't really know what the OHL was, and they'd think you're crazy. But I remember a Sudbury scout had come to one of my games, and I had played really well, and they said, we're going to draft you in the third round. They called me at home to make sure I went to the draft. And so my dad drove me to Belleville, and I had no idea, again, what the draft was. So I showed up in an old pair of, I remember, Request jeans with the red part on the fly and the crotch of it, and a t-shirt, and I'm sitting there, and all these people are walking in suits and their agents, and
that's Don Cherry's fault, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm sitting there, I have no idea what's going on with the draft, and it goes through 3 rounds, and I wasn't selected. And back then, if you were an underage, you had to be selected. So
I'm mad though, like even you retelling it, and I read it in the book, but like this somebody, and I guess you don't want to name this person, but somebody at the Sudbury Wolves is phoning you at home and saying to you, come to the 94 OHL draft because we're drafting you.
Yeah, and then you realize as you go through the game, these are the mental tolls. And I remember getting drafted the next year, and you're sitting there, and there's kids that sit there for 15 rounds and don't get drafted. I remember Don Cherry would say, like, please don't go if you don't think you're going to get drafted.
Yeah, but you were phoned.
Yeah,
this is it, Justin. Listen, you were called by, and this wasn't like your buddy playing tricks on you, right? Like this was... Right. This was a scout for the Sudbury Wolves, and I mean my cousin played for the Sudbury Wolves actually. So I mean this is a big time OHL team. A scout's calling you at home and saying, "Come to Belleville, come to the OHL draft because we're picking you." To me, to not draft you and have you go undrafted, sitting in that fucking draft, pardon my French, is cruel and unusual punishment.
But it's the first step, right? And
but aren't you mad? Aren't you still mad?
Well, I was, and I said that in the book. Like I said earlier, I can't remember my kids' birthdays, and I can't remember certain things, but I remember who did me wrong in my mind. I talk about Flamborough minor hockey, where they wouldn't let me play a year up, even though I was scoring 300 goals a year, and so you remember the names of those people. And then Sudbury, I was like, okay, I remember that. So every time I play Sudbury, and when I went through my actual draft year, and how many
95
people had more points than me, I think it was like there was 20 people drafted ahead of me that had more points in the OHL. So I feel like during my career, I proved myself. But again, I didn't realize this until, like, you're talking about this, just reading it. I didn't realize any of this stuff till I sat down and actually
you didn't
started
have like
to write
an
a memoir.
agent.
Yeah, I kind of had an agent, but I didn't really know how it worked. And like, we're as naive could come now. Like now at 8, like, you've got kids saying, "Oh, I'm going to sign to this agent, and I'm going to go to the GTHL, and I'm going to house with somebody." And the dream is, and back then it was just like we played hockey to play with our friends, and the small town kids were some of the best players. So yeah, I remember, don't play it off like I didn't remember. And I think for my dad, this is just the mental.
Yeah. What's it like for him though, with his boy in Belleville at the OHL draft, because a phone call came into the home. This is the part that pisses me off.
Yeah.
Like, this guy made a phone call and said, "Come to the draft. We're drafting you." At that point, to not draft you and not have any communication, like, "Oh, we had I'm sorry, we had a change of heart, or we had something that came up or whatever," but to not communicating with you, to me, like, I just want to, where is this guy? Where is this scout? Because I want to punch him in the nose.
Yeah, and you know what, and now I realize, like, again, what my parents went through, right, as a dad, now seeing what they went through in that process.
Breaks my heart to think about it.
Well, in the following year, I got drafted by Kingston, and I wasn't planning on going to the OHL because of that, because it left such a bad taste. And after a day, they offered me, they said, "We want to sign you," and I never came back home. So when you talk about the anguish and kind of pain it caused my mom, where, like, you leave for a weekend and then you never come back home for the rest of your life, it definitely is the wear and tear. And this is what I want parents to know. Like, they're so eager to get their kids in a certain league and moving out at 12, 13, 14, but these are your kids. Like, you don't get to see them again. And when you throw it away, there's still very few people that become Connor McDavid and these people that have 10-year careers.
No, great point. I mean, everybody thinks their kid, like you said, Mitch Marner earlier, whose point streak ended yesterday, by the way. It's over. The streak is over. But man, he was a long way off from the Mario Lemieux record anyways. But okay, so you go to the 94 OHL draft and you're not drafted, but then you're almost like Charlie Brown kicking that football because did you know for sure you'd be drafted in the 95 OHL draft?
Well, I went in, and back then the Hockey News was the gospel, and Bob McKenzie, and
yes.
It was rated in the top 20 of the OHL draft. I remember there's a profile, and I got to the draft, and again, here we go. I'm ready to go, and I watched player after player get picked, and by the third round, I hadn't been picked, and I didn't know what was going on, and I wanted to leave, and my agent said just stay, and I got selected by Kingston late, in like the 6th round, and I was just so mad. And talking to Brian Kilray after, a lot of the teams thought I was going the college route, and that was kind of what my agent threw out, but at the same time, it was just like, here we go again. And I was so mad that I wasn't going to go to Kingston. But then I realized, I mean, this is a team that took a chance on me and drafted me, so I can't be mad at them. But again, it wasn't a great experience with the drafts. And
I mean, I'm sure you're looking at your path because your goal here is to play in the NHL, right? So you're thinking Kingston Frontenacs, playing there and having a good career there is your best bet to have a pathway to the NHL, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you get there, and Brett Lindros had played there the year before, and all these big names. And when you get to training camp, people are asking for your autograph. You get to wear a half visor for the first time, and it feels like the mini NHL.
I mean, think about the great NHL players who've gone through the OHL. Like, it's a lengthy list from Bobby Orr to Wayne Gretzky, right? Like, this is definitely your path to the NHL. Okay, so let's get you in Kingston and just hit some interesting points here I was reading about in your book. But one thing is that you did start things off of a bang, right? Because you had a hell of a first game with the Kingston Frontenacs.
Well, I actually started off, so they call it a healthy scratch. So when you're not playing, they just say you're scratched from the lineup and you're healthy. So I didn't play the first couple games, and then I didn't think I was going to play one of my first games playing, and I got a popcorn, and I'd worked out in the morning, was sitting in the crowd, and they said one of the Czech guys had pulled his groin, and I was going to play. So it was in Sault Ste. Marie, and I got the call, came down, changed, and didn't even have a warm-up, and I ended up getting a hat trick, and I was the first star, and things went quick, and from there I ended up playing on the first line and scored 30 goals that year and got drafted. So when you think back why things happen to you or why things happen for a certain reason, that was definitely the break that I needed, I got, and I took advantage of it.
Now let's hit on, there's many injuries, and we'll talk about a few of them here, but tell me a little bit about this. I guess it's in your rookie campaign here with Kingston, but is this where you get slew-footed and then you get the concussion when you hit the ice? Yeah,
so we were playing against Barrie at the old Dunlop Street Arena, and I was skating up the ice, and a slew-foot's when someone kind of pushes your chest back but sweeps your feet out, and it's one of the dirtiest things. People talk about hitting from behind. The slew foot to me is so much worse because the ramifications and injuries that come from it. But I hit my head on the back, my head slammed back on the ice, and I didn't know where I was. And when you get these concussions after you get a couple, you realize it's just like, feels like the world just is in slow motion and this white foggy. Yeah. So I got to the bench and I didn't feel well. And the trainer said, "Are you all right?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I'm okay." And so they said, "Okay, they got a penalty, so go out in the power play." And it's the only time I remember, I had no idea what was going on when I went out there. So I came back and I threw up over the bench, and they said, "You know what, maybe you should just sit out for a little bit." So when the period ended, I laughed because if this had happened now, they'd take you to the room and they'd do the check. But they said, just sit for 3 or 4 minutes.
There's no protocol at this time.
Nothing.
For concussion
your trainer is your equipment guy, is your bus coordinator, orders the pizza.
Again, we're talking mid-90s, right? It feels like we're talking about some prehistoric era because of what we know now about CTE and concussions. But please continue.
So then, so after the period, they took me to the dressing room and they said, "Are you okay?" They had a doctor check me out, and they said, "Okay, this isn't good. It's a really bad concussion, so he can't go out and play." But because we only had one trainer, they said, "You know what? Take your skates off, go lay in the shower, and we'll turn the lights off, and then we're going to finish the third period. And then when you come back, we'll monitor you, and we'll make sure that you're okay." So the team went out, they locked the door, they shut the lights off, and I laid my equipment in the shower for whatever, 30, 40 minutes, whatever it takes for a period. And then everybody came in, I got dressed, I went home, and I practiced 2 days later. And and knowing what we know now, that's part of why I wrote the book, is that the CTE and the discussion of what happens to you after multiple head injuries.
It's the compounding, right?
Oh, it's terrifying.
You mentioned Brett Lindros, about 20 minutes ago. And he retires at, I don't know, early 20s
Right.
because of compounding concussions. He doesn't want to be like a guy our age, like drooling and unable to, live his life.
So that's what I was going through as a phys ed teacher. I'd be standing in the gym and I'd look one way quickly and I'd get dizzy, and I was having a lot of bad migraines. And so when I wrote the book, this is what I was saying. It's terrifying when you look back on it, and how badly. I don't think it was intentional. It was just so ignorant.
Is it ignorance? Yeah.
Ignorance.
It's like smelling salts, get back out there. I co-host a show with Mark Hebscher called Hebsy on Sports. And just this morning, we were talking about, like, in the 90s, of course, he's the guy on Sportsline with Jim Taddy. And like how they would glorify the brawls, like the knockout punch and the getting your bell rung, basically, and how you might have missed a shift, you might have not, but there was no protocol. We did not understand, or at least we were maybe blissfully ignorant or whatever of how damaging these concussions were. I will say my kids are only house leagues, so there's no hitting in these games, but go break a leg, break them both.
Yeah.
Just as long as your head, the head is everything. That's where the brain is. That's everything.
Yeah, and we're just finding out now. And my former agent, Alan Walsh, is really going hard after all of this. And he was just saying the other day, because they were discussing whether a hit was the Ryan Reeves hit the other night.
That's what we were talking about this morning.
Was clean or dirty? And his point is when it's getting near the head, and former players saying that's a great hit. We're not looking at these former players when they're 40, 45, and 50 years old, when they're suffering from the injuries from this stuff. And that's what we're worried about. And I said in the book, like, I don't mind fighting. There's a time and place where you need to stick up for somebody, but are we looking for the knockout punch and the crowd standing up? Are we looking for the cross ice hit where we're taking a guy's head off? There's a way to have some physicality in the game, but it's got to be different than it was, for sure.
Well, I mean, we heard stories about Chris Pronger, right?
Yeah.
You put him in a dark room or whatever so that he could get through the day. But my goodness gracious, how many, as far as you know, because it's impossible, I guess, to know exactly, but how many concussions do you think you suffered in your hockey career?
Well, I'd say 13 to 15, but the next year when I was traded to Sault Ste. Marie, that was I was at a blindside hit that I went into the boards and I was unconscious, and I was having a little mini seizure on the ice. And for people that follow football with I'll butcher the name, Tuigalova or whatever.
Dolphins quarterback.
For the Dolphins quarterback. And he, when he had his hand went up in the air, that fencing syndrome, they call it. And that happened to me. And I was out for 2-3 minutes. And then I went to the dressing room. They took me off and woke up with smelling salts. And they put me on the bus. And at that time, the Sault Ste. Marie, they thought they would get me to Canada instead of paying the U.S. medical bills. So I started throwing up again all over the bus, and the trainer said, we need to get him to a hospital. And so instead of taking me to Canada, they got me to a hospital in Detroit, and I spent 3 days in ICU on IV and getting MRIs and bleeding on the brain. And it was a terrible situation. My mom came down and stayed with me. And long story short, I don't want to get ahead of myself and maybe questions you had, but they tried to bill me $15,000 for the bill the next year. My agent, Alan Walsh, stood up for me and said, this is not right. But they said, we only pay medical bills in Canada. That's why we were trying to get him to Canada. And this is the Ontario Hockey League, right? Where you're charging at the time $15 for a ticket, and you've got these sponsorships and trying to bill my parents.
And I remember watching, I used to watch the OHL game of the week on Global.
Yeah, and
Jim Ralph used to do, as I recall, Jim Ralph would do the intermission interviews, etc.
Well, that's where I got. That was my first big game in Kingston. I took a slap shot right here in the face in the OHL game of the week, and cut my lip open, and I went for stitches. And the old Kingston arena was so old; there's so much power going through that they lost all the power by mid stitches. So about 6 stitches in, they were doing with the flashlight. So that's why I have a scar that starts and goes right towards my cheek and goes left back towards the middle of my lip. So
that's why I gave you a Ridley Funeral Home flashlight.
I wish they had that flashlight when they were doing it. So long story short, to sue, my agent said that if you don't pay the bill, I'm going to go public with it and say this is how you treat your players, and they paid it. But so that's, I mean, I've been on for half an hour and I've told you 2 major concussions.
Yeah.
And then you add in little ones, like you said, they're repeated every time you get
Well, you
hit.
said 12 to 15 in total. Like, we all know about the compounding. This was, Well, listen, Eric Lindros, forget Brett Lindros, who died very young, but Eric didn't play a full career because of the same problem. It's the compounding concussions.
So I missed the rest of that year and then started the next year. But then, like you said, each little hit that you get, it just is worse each time.
Exponential damage, we'll call it here.
Yeah.
Okay,
No.
my goodness. And today, so you're a bit younger than me, but let's say you're in your mid 40s. I'm just guessing here. Like, do you still have any side effects from these concussions you suffered as a hockey player?
Yeah, every day. And I mean, when you read the symptoms when you say mood swings and anxiety, and I'm not a big going out into public and talking to people, and you get anxious when you do certain things. And I was dealing with these headaches and dizziness, but we have a concussion clinic in Guelph that's state of the art in Ontario called Shift Concussion. And I've been going to Scott Holler there and doing a lot of eye exercises and going through things. And this book has been like, just coming to you and talking to people about it is like counseling and things you got to get off. And
I'm billing you for this therapy.
Yeah,
by the way.
exactly.
You're taking an invoice home with you.
So it just helps, right? And get through kind of the anxiousness and things that you deal with on a daily basis.
Well, I'm glad you're talking about it. And I'm glad you wrote the book too, because a lot of times it's all sunshine and happy faces and stuff, and it's like let's get some real talk on hockey culture and what it's like. Again, and you're a guy who was drafted but didn't play in the NHL, and it's very interesting to like read your perspective on all this. So earlier we talked about, the hot boxing, okay, which means something different in the Canna Cabana world. Shout out to Canna Cabana, who will not be undersold on cannabis or cannabis accessories, over 140 locations across the country. We love Canna Cabana. But can you tell me succinctly here, what is a shoe check?
Well, so a shoe check is like, so when you're playing junior, everyone will be eating dinner and somebody will say, hey, you're going to go, let's say Mike. Someone's got to go get Mike. So they'll have a spoon of ketchup or Thousand Island dressing. And the goal is go under the table, crawl under the table and put the spoonful of that on somebody's shoes. And then they crawl back out and get back to their seat without anybody knowing. And then everybody starts tapping their glass and saying shoe check. And everybody looks down at their shoes. And then you see your white running shoes have a giant ketchup stain on them, and it just brings down the house. But you try and keep the person it's happened to occupied so they don't look under the table. But now, like, again, I do all this stuff as a person out of the hockey world. Now, if I was eating at like Kelsey's and I saw somebody crawling on the dirty floor with a spoon of ketchup under and putting it on every tap in their glass and laughing, like you would know what's going on. But
I will say this, to hear this story, it's almost like, okay, well, this is like a harmless prank. Okay. It's kind of pretty harmless anyway. It's kind of ridiculous. But meanwhile, I believe it's with Kingston. I think it's with the Kingston Frontenacs that you have a rookie initiation where you'll tell me, it's your story. I read it in your book, but you tie shoelace around your genitals.
Well, that was part of the hot box where.
Oh, that's part of the hot box.
That's what you do, and everybody you have to walk down the aisle, and every veteran player yanks on the shoelace, and then
ouch! Does that hurt?
Yeah, and that's when you get into a
lot of nudity in hockey.
Right. So then when you talk about that, and then you go to the shoe check again, it's just varying degrees in the hockey world, and.
But shoe check better than hot box. Can I say that?
Yeah, just slightly. And you
put
know
some
what?
ketchup in my shoes. Just don't tie that shoelace around my genitals so you can pull on it.
I'm 44 now, and I still, when I go to a restaurant, I sit with my back outside the wall so that I can see what's going on and I can see all ends of the table, who's coming. So it's like when you talk about things are ingrained.
That's like a mobster.
Well, you're just ingrained, right? It becomes ingrained in the back of your mind.
I feel like mobsters always have their face to the door so you can see if somebody comes in who's going to knock them off or whatever. Okay. Now I want to ask you about this is must have been an exciting moment, but did you attend the 1996 NHL draft in St. Louis? Yeah.
So my parents and I, we drove all the way to St. Louis and we stayed in a hotel, and I remember being in the lobby watching people walk by, and when we talk about players, I remember this giant man walking through the lobby, and I was like, who's that guy? And they said, oh, it's some, I think, Slovakian defenseman, and it was Zdeno Chara, and that was my draft. And so just the players that were expected to be drafted. So my agent told me, you're not going to get drafted to probably the 4th, 5th, 6th round, so just take your time. The first round's really long. Don't get there early. So I arrived around the third round, about the 65th pick, and I got there's a snack bar, and I was hungry, and so I got fries and ketchup, and I sat down, and like immediately upon sitting down, I remember just the Washington Capitals select Justin Davis, and just shock. So I didn't really have time to
but you didn't have ketchup on your shirt or anything, did you?
Nothing.
Okay, good
I was
for you.
clean. So then, so I didn't really have time to comprehend. But then when I went down, it was surreal. And,
So what round is this? The 85th? I know it's 85th.
So 85th. So back then it would have been the fourth round, but
Okay.
it's still like I look back and you look at the people that got drafted after you and the risk they took. So yeah, it's something that they can't take away from you, and it was a big moment in my career.
No, I mean, you can be touting that till the day you die, right? like that's like, I would just get a t-shirt like drafted by the Washington Capitals at the 1996 NHL draft in St. Louis. Like, they can never take that away from you.
Well, except for the guy that said to draft me and then I didn't make it, then maybe he loses his job. That's what I
screw
say.
that guy. Like, tell if you dox him and give me his name, I will. I'm not a big guy. You're a much bigger guy than I am, but I will punch him in the nose. Okay. I'm just thinking, I have a 21-year-old, so I just transpose everything, and it's somebody phoning my son and saying, we're going to draft you at this draft, come to this draft. And then we go to that, again, we're in the past, we're going to bring it back to the sophomore slump you had with Frontenac, but like, to not get drafted, to me, this is the worst of the worst, Justin. Like, I know you've moved on in your life, but I'm just grappling with this now. So I'm still upset. Okay. All right. So we talked a little bit about Sault Ste. Marie because you had that terrible concussion there, but there is a guy you played with in the Sioux, Jumbo Joe Thornton. Like, so you're playing with Jumbo Joe here before before that major concussion, though, I guess. What was it like playing with Joe Thornton? Joshua, sorry, I get all my J names mixed up, even though two of my sons are named J names, but Joshua Cloak tells a great story about Joe Thornton and Gord Downey and their relationship, because wonderful relationship they had because, Gord was a big Bruins guy anyway, but Joe was Mr. Bruin for a while there. But what could you tell me about playing with Joe Thornton in the Sioux?
Well, it's interesting that you said that because I read the same article about Joe, and
it was a great article.
And that's the thing about him, right? He's never front and center. He doesn't put himself out. Like I mean, if Gord Downey was meeting with me in Toronto, I think I'd call all my friends and tell my parents I'd be taking pictures.
Look,
right?
That's my favorite band of all time.
Right. Well, I mean, it was the soundtrack of my like hockey career because we'd go
50 Mission Cap and
every Canada Day. That's where we'd go to Molson Park and we'd do that. So the fact that he did that and kept it under wraps and that's who Joe is. Like he took care of everybody. So when I got traded there, I was a little intimidated, even though I was 18 and he was 16. But because he's this guy supposed to go first overall in the draft, and he was just such a great guy. Neither of us could ever sleep on the bus. And Sue, your 12-hour bus rides every weekend.
That's the thing about playing at Sault Ste. Marie is a lot of bus rides.
It was awful. So we couldn't sleep. So we'd stay up and we'd talk. And then at the end of the year, his brother was a teacher in Texas, and we actually went to, I think, Galveston, Texas, to visit him, and we just kind of hung out and had a great time. We actually went to see a Silverchair concert, and I always remember we saw them. And
tomorrow, I saw them at Molson Park and Barrie at Edgefest.
So I remember we were in a mosh pit, and he was just like just running around and just trying to destroy people, and his brother pulling him out. But in Galveston, Texas, no one knows that he's going to be the first overall pick in the next NHL draft, and we don't have camera phones But so anyways, we lost touch. I always say it's tough when someone's a millionaire and I'm a thousandaire, and like, I mean, how do you keep in touch? But when I reached out to him and said, I'd really like you to just say a blurb on the book, it would mean a lot. And he said, with all these people like Brian Kilrea, you call them and it's like it's 1997 again. And he said, no problem. And we caught up, and he was amazing. He's just a great guy. And I don't think you'll find a teammate that played with him that would have anything bad to say about him.
It was neat that we got to see him here in Toronto too, and now this is part of my ignorance. Has he retired yet?
I don't think he officially retired, but just kind of texting with him when he was playing for the Leafs, I think, even though it didn't go, I think, how he expected, and it's tough when you're on the...
Well, that's what happens when you play for the Leafs.
That's right. But he had his family moved here, and his kids were able to go see his parents in St. Thomas, and I think it was just great being around here. And you look at the impact he's still hanging out with Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner. And yeah, I was wondering the same thing. I always thought he'd go to Switzerland and play 2 or 3 more years, but you never know with him. He's unpredictable.
No, he's unpredictable. But if people haven't seen the piece about his relationship with Gord Downie, in Gord Downie's final years, quite the story there. Okay, let's get you back. You mentioned Brian Kilrea again. Let's get you to. So how do you end up in Ottawa? I know that, again, all this is in the book, so we're just kind of breezing through it. But there's a bit of a sophomore slump for you, and then you have that terrible second major concussion, and we touched on that. But how do you end up in Ottawa?
So I have the concussion, the year ends, and then over the summer, I come back to the Sioux, and I have just a terrible experience with a coach. And to that coach's credit, when recently I've had some coaches reach out and apologize and talk about some of the behavior, why things happen. And that coach reached out, and they were worried about my past concussion history, and they wanted me out. So Brian Kilrea called and said, whenever you played us in Kingston, you always scored. So
Right.
I want you here. So I drove up to Ottawa that day, and I walk in the room. I'm like, where am I going to bill it? Like, it's another new billet. This is going to be my 5th high school in
Wow.
5 years, my 3rd billet house. And he says, oh, you're coming home to stay with Judy and I.
Wow.
So I hop in the van and go back to his house. And like you, this is a future Hall of Famer, the winningest coach in junior hockey history. And you're nervous. And I ate dinner at the house the first night, and it was probably the most normal, like just close to my family that I've ever had. And took me downstairs, said, this is my beer fridge. This is my recliner. Here's a hockey game. Watch this. And here's my rotary phone in case you want to make a long distance call. So
it's tough when the numbers have a lot of. We're old enough to remember if you had a lot of 9s in your phone number, like that was a lot of work.
I tell this story where I have a calling card and there's a lot of 1s in it. And I'm like, I give up. This isn't going to
No, the
work.
1s are easy, right? I'm trying to remember now. I mean, I'm older than you, but the 1s are easy, right? That's the short one. It's the 9s.
Yeah,
and
I think,
zeros.
you're right. It's a 9.
Yeah.
So, so anyways, it was great. So I got traded there, and then he just said, you're going to play on the 3rd line, and I just want you to score and have some fun, and moved up, and the rest of the story is...
Well, it ends in, like you mentioned, like earlier, you mentioned that you won the Allen Cup, but this is the 1999, you win the Memorial Cup.
Yeah, I was an overage, so it's your last year in junior, and it was just such a great experience. And then obviously for Brian to win it in Ottawa, and I was on the ice, the puck came around the boards, and we actually went to overtime, and I passed it to Matt Zoltek, and he scored the game winner. And so to assist on the game winning goal in the Memorial Cup, and then I was the leading scorer in the tournament, and it was just surreal. My
Justin
family's
Davis.
there. Yeah.
I'm going to go up and tell Jarvis the leading scorer in the 99 Memorial Cup is in our basement right now.
That's
This is
right.
awesome. That's awesome. And it is quite the feat that you did win the Allen Cup and the Memorial Cup. Like the only chip missing there is the Stanley Cup. But obviously you got these two wonderful accomplishments. Like quite the career for a guy who didn't suit up for the Capitals.
Well, I always joke I won the University Cup too at the University of Western, the only championship they won. But I won the.
And what's that called?
They called it's just a University Cup, no fancy name.
So creative. Okay.
But in Ottawa, I won it in single overtime. At Western, I won it in triple overtime.
Wow.
And then with the Real McCoys in Dundas, we won it in single overtime as well. So the career could have gone very different ways if I lost any of those, but lucky enough to win each one in overtime. So
too bad you didn't win with the in Germany, but we'll get to that in a minute.
That's right.
I'm going to ask you about a couple of names while you're in Ottawa, and then we'll get you to fall in love and get you to Germany here. But I think it's kind of neat that you're kind of crossing paths with James Cybulski, because he's a guy like a media personality that we kind of follow here in the Toronto Mike universe. But were you friends with James, or
he was
just there at the same time?
was like I don't know how much the people listening would know James, but
no, the people listening would know him very well. Like, do you know where you are?
Yeah, well, he was. So James was like a WW. I'm going to use old school WWF, not the E. He was like.
Listen, George the Animal Steel is literally
We
right
were just
here,
talking about Princess Miss Elizabeth the other day. Actually,
okay. Well,
funny.
Miss Elizabeth, that Macho Man Randy Savage. Now you're talking, man.
Yeah.
That's my WWF time.
So James came in. I believe he's working at a local college, and they said this guy's going to do the public address. So usually you get like Ottawa goal scored by number 12, Justin Davis, and it's like the routine. And then he would just be like a wrestling announcer. And then
I love it.
He'd say to us, okay, what's so-and-so's nickname? So Brian Campbell would score, and he'd be like, goal scored by number 44, Flying Brian Campbell, and then assisted by the ladies' man. And like, so he's adding these things in. So we were beating Mississauga one game 7-1. And James got on and was like, Ottawa goal scored by Flying Brian Campbell, and what a goal, end-to-end rush. And this is on public address. And I remember Kilray just losing his mind on the bench as somebody get that guy off the mic, and I'm gonna. So he was hilarious, and he'd meet after, and Brian would just wait for him to get on the bus, and then he'd lash out at him. But James, he wouldn't care. But yeah, and you know what? To his credit, he stayed in touch with a large number of those guys that were on that team, and it's something I'll never forget.
But this begs a question. What was your nickname? Like, can I get it? Okay, Justin Davis. I actually don't even know where you go. Is it just JD? Like, what's your nickname?
Mine would have just been JD when I played, but I don't know what he called me on the mic.
Justin, okay. I'm trying to think, because Davis doesn't really work because, you just add an E or something to the end, but Davis doesn't actually
hockey's pretty simple, right? You add a SY on the end or initials, but once in a while you get some really good creative ones, but they're pretty simple people.
Well, your coach there had a good one. I think Killer is a great nickname for a guy named Kilray, but it's really nice to hear you talk about him, because like he's almost like the Mr. Rogers of the OHL or whatever. Like, and then you just hope you never hear a bad story about him. But like the way you talk about him and write about him in the book, like we needed more of him. Like we needed to clone him and put him in all these in hockey, and the culture would have been quite different. I would think.
Well, I think the different. What someone asked me why he was so different, but I think so many coaches want to make the NHL or want to climb the ranks and use junior hockey as their stepping stone, and they're going to make a difference. Where Brian lived in the same house for 60 years, and he was a pillar of the community. He
was happy where he was.
He had no goal to go anywhere else. Like, he went to, I think he worked with the New York Islanders with Al Arbor for a year or two and realized that wasn't his gig, and he came back. So he cared about his players. And the one thing I'll say about him, he didn't trade people. If you asked for a trade, he'd say, okay, go home and I might trade you. But when he drafted you, his goal is to develop you and bring you through the system and work. So, so much different when you look at it from a perspective where you're not going to get fired. You're very good at what you do. And so, but the story is like, he could do nothing wrong. I tell a story in the book about how the bus was going into a ditch because they all smoked cigars on the bus. And the bus driver was allowed to smoke a cigarette. So we'd pop the hatch in the back of the bus, and you could barely breathe, but the bus driver passed out because,
oh my God.
Like, I don't know if he had whatever he did, he fainted and he was gone. So the bus starts heading to the ditch, and Brian jumps into the driver's seat, hits the brake, and puts the bus in park. And then one of the newspaper people comes up to him after and says, "Oh, Brian, like, how did you rack so fast?" And his comment was, "When there's one beer left on this bus, you got to be quick." And you're just like, this guy, like, this is who he was. Like,
he's
he was
Batman.
he just like, and he could say that stuff and people would laugh, and like, he's just one of a kind.
That's a precious story. Just all of it. Like the cigars, the cigarette, the bus driver passing out, the killer getting, it's like when Kramer, remember Kramer? Mm-hmm. And he goes, "Why'd you keep stopping the bus?" He goes, "People kept ringing the bell."
Well, that's, yeah, no, it was it's something you never forgot.
Wow. Okay, so you win the 99 Memorial Cup. Now, again, not to get too personal, but the woman that you follow to Western, are you still married to her?
Yes.
Okay, good news.
That's a
Justin, that's good
news. It's a tough question to ask live. Yeah.
I was sweating when I asked it, but I just get a good feeling about it all. So is that why you end up at University of... By the way, it changes its name while you're there, right? I feel like Western changed its name.
I went to, it's gone to Western University after the book came out too. So, I won the Memorial Cup, and I thought, man, there's going to be a lot of teams breaking down my door to sign me. And I got offered a couple American Hockey League and East Coast Hockey League deals. And like I said earlier, you see these guys that are just kind of 34, scraping along and fighting and trying to...
Oh, the Hanson brothers.
Right, just trying to make some money. And I said...
I've seen Slapshot, okay?
Yeah. So I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. And near the end of the summer, I met... I knew her for 3 or 4 years, and we got talking. And I said, "What are you doing next year?" And she said, "I'm going to Western." So I said, "Oh, that sounds good." But we're talking like 1 week before school, right? And like now I look back, I'm a high school teacher. People apply like in January, February. So I call
just
the
went through
coach.
this, yeah.
I call the coach and I say, hey, my name's Justin Davis and I think I'd want to go to Western to play hockey. And he's like, well, let's see what I can do. Send your transcripts. So on Labor Day, I end up at Western with Jess. And I mean, we were probably dating for maybe 5 days. So take a huge leap of faith that if this is the wrong person, I'm in the wrong place. I made a big mistake.
But you knew, man. I could tell you knew.
Yeah,
Like, you
I
knew
think-
this was the
right.
girl for you.
So then
It's beautiful, really.
we got married in 2002 and we've been together and she's been everywhere with me, Germany. And so I made the right decision.
And you got beautiful kids, and you're still a happy man. I'm looking in your eyes here. You're still happy.
Yeah, no,
Life is good.
Life's been good.
Life is good. Okay, so obviously Western, where you said you win the championship, creatively titled the University Cup.
Yeah, exactly.
We got to get a good name on that. Come on, that's the Mike Ridley Cup or something. But and again, let's not bury the lead here because you're not. Spoiler alert, you're not going to be an NHL star making millions of dollars. So you're going to get an education, and then you get to be, that's a great profession, a teacher. Like, I think you've chosen a wonderful profession. You can, work with the youth of tomorrow or the youth of today, I guess. And that's a great living you've got, and you get your summers off.
Yeah, it's always the summers off, right? So, yeah, and that's the thing is, I mean, we practice every day at university, and we had, I think we had 13 NHL draft picks the year that I played at Western, and got a great education. I mean, it's.
Who's the best player on that team?
We had a guy, Jeff Martin, who was probably one of the best.
From the Tea Party.
Yeah, one of the best hockey players I played with, but like everything, you look around and we're all here for a reason, right? Something didn't break our way or something happened, and we had some great players on that team, and but I mean, I know this is a Toronto Mike podcast, and maybe I'm supposed to say U of T but I'm a Western guy through and through, and
Party you.
It was it's where the smart people go, and it's one of the best experiences I've had.
Listen. My son went to Laurier, but he actually transferred to York. He didn't have a good time. And then my daughter's at McGill right now. But my buddy Elvis, who's visiting me for Festivus, went to University of Western Ontario. And it sounds like a party school. Like, it sounds like a good time.
That means you have the airing of the grievances later tonight then?
That's the 23rd, man. Come back here. We're going to air the grievances. We're going to get out the poll.
The Festivus poll.
But no tinsel. It's distracting. Okay, we follow the rules here. Hey, so I get the feeling from you you're into like alt rock in the 90s, right? We talked about the hip, and then I just referenced the Tea Party. But were you a fan of the Watchmen?
Yeah, a little bit. Like, it's funny what you I mean you got what people gave you, right? Someone would give you a CD and say, this is what you need to listen to. And so your tastes were really with who you're surrounded by.
Okay, the reason I'm bringing up the Watchmen is because the drummer for the Watchmen is a guy named Sammy Cohn. Cohn is Kohn. And I want to shout out Sammy Cohn because he's a hell of a real estate agent. And seriously, he's in the top 1% of realtors in Toronto. This is according to the TREB, the Toronto Real Estate Board. And if you have any questions at all about real estate, anything related to real estate, you can write Sammy right now. You can write him about drumming for the Watchmen if you want. But sammy.cohn, Kohn, at properlyhomes.ca. Reach out to Sammy. And even if you just want to say, hey, man, I loved your drum fill on the Boneyard Tree or whatever, reach out to Sammy. He's a good FOTM. Okay, so you graduate Western, you win that championship, but then you end up in Germany. And this sounds like, and the way you put in your book, I like it because it's like hockey took so much from you, and this was a chance for you to kind of exploit hockey for your benefit, right? Like get to go to Germany.
Right. I got some offers from some East Coast League teams and some AHL teams coming to university. And I'm like, do I want to go to Toledo, Ohio to play hockey? Or do I want to go
That's where Klinger's from, by the way, on MASH.
Like, do I want to go to Koblenz, which is like an hour from Cologne and an hour from Frankfurt in Germany, and then I do the Google Maps, and I'm 3 hours from Amsterdam, I'm 5 hours from Paris. So
everything's there.
You got it. So,
and Oktoberfest, man.
You got it. So I had my wife with me, and I said, "Let's do this." And
are you married yet? Or are you still dating?
Yeah, I'm probably one of the only guys that got married in their third year at Western. But yeah, we were married for a couple of years. We both had a teaching degree, so I said, "Let's go." And my wife speaks Spanish, and she picked up German when we were there, and she's a French teacher. Nice. So languages, she was an easy yes. And so we end up in Germany, and through an agent, a Slovenian. if you talk about a Seinfeld episode or these sitcoms, I had an agent whose name was Drago, who was Slovenian.
Oh, from Rocky IV.
Oh, well, he was not
Ivan Drago.
He was not the same body type. So this guy calls me and he says, "Hi, I'm Drago. I'm going to be your agent." And I said, "Sure." And so he got me a great deal with this team. I got a car, an apartment. I made €3,000 a month and everything that you could want. And so he says, okay, he calls me when I get to Germany. He says, "You owe me $3,000 as part of the signing contract." I'm like, okay, €3,000. So he said, we had a game in Stuttgart, and he said, "I'll meet you when you get off the bus." So we're busing, and I got €3,000 cash in my pocket. And I'm like, when I get off the bus, how am I going to know who this Slovenian agent is that I've never met before? So, and he always forgot my name. So he called me Champ. So he'd say, "Champ, it's Drago," when he called. And then he'd say, "Champ, it's Drago. Are you going to be there tomorrow?" So I get off the bus, and this 5'6" kind of stocky Slovenian guy says, "I'm Drago." So I give him 3,000 cash. He says, "Have a good game," and he disappears. And that's the only time I've met him in my life. So I'm wondering, did I hand $3,000 to the wrong person? What's going on? And then that's how I got to Germany, was through Drago the Slovenian.
Drago. You know, just don't make them bleed, okay?
Yeah.
That's the trick there. You know, that's where this is going to be a quick sidetrack here. So James Brown, right? Godfather of Soul, the hardest working man in showbiz. James Brown, big deal. I discovered James Brown because he sings that "Living in America" at the beginning of Rocky IV.
Yeah.
Like, oh, then it's like, oh, I feel good. And then I Feel Good was on the Good Morning Vietnam soundtrack, which I had on cassette.
Yeah.
Okay. And by the way, I set up my cassette player here, not because I love the 90s so much, but I do, or the 80s. But I'm going to start digitizing some old Humble and Fred tapes. That's going to be my like Christmas time project, is going to digitize old Humble and Fred cassette tapes. So don't get too jealous, okay, Justin?
Well, I drive 45 minutes to Orangeville every morning. And 3 years ago, they had a
820.
It was on 820.
It was 820.
Podcast.
I was all
house.
over it. Yeah, they didn't renew, but yeah. 820.
So that was my listening when I went to work every day. And I don't know if I missed it because I was in 40 cities in 5 years, but I loved those two.
Are you ready for this? Are you sitting down?
Yeah.
I produced that show.
Come on.
Humble and Fred, yeah.
And then you'd have the dog barking in the background sometimes. And
oh, that's Stan.
Yeah.
The bulldog, yeah. So I literally, that's one of the shows I produce is Humble and Fred.
So when I coached high school hockey, I'd leave at 6:30 in the morning in dark days, and that was like
when they were on 102.1.
A little bit on that, but then an 820 was my that was my go-to. And
so they had a 5-year deal on. I'm giving you some insight here, but they had a 5-year deal on Sirius XM to be on Canada Laughs.
Okay,
and then Sirius XM didn't renew, so Humble and Fred gave their show to 820. And then 820 at some point decided they just wanted to do like stand-up comics all day, and we got so they sent us a note to say they weren't going to have us on after this certain date, and then so I'm part of the team, so it's me and Humble and Fred decided, you don't get to fire us, we're going to quit. And we basically set up this thing where we quit radio before they had a chance to fire us, and now they're just a podcast, but still a lot of listeners, and I'm still working with them, so it's going great. But that's funny.
Yeah, they were great.
Well, a lot of Watchmen were played on Humble and Fred's morning shows, and it all comes full circle here. Okay, so you're in Germany after you graduate from University of Western Ontario. You and your wife are in Germany. I want to ask you, so there's a FOTM named Mike Eppel who actually appears on Breakfast Television and 680, and Mike Eppel's from Tilsonburg. So I just can you give me a taste before we get you to the Dundas Real McCoys here and get you that Allen Cup, which is like your third major trophy. What's the Tilsonburg Vipers? Like, what is that?
So I basically was going to sign another contract to go to Germany. And I went out for a run one day. I was in week 3 of my off-season training, and I just stopped. And I said, I'm done. I like 1 kilometer in, I'm like, I cannot work out anymore. I'm done. And I'm going to teach full time. So I did that. And I said, I'm done playing hockey. I'm never playing hockey again. And then a guy I had played with was coaching this Tilsonburg Vipers in the Senior A hockey league, and
there's fighting in this league, right? Like this is
it was full out hockey.
Okay,
and I was like, I am not playing. Like if you think I'm driving from Guelph to Tilsonburg to play, I said I need free sticks, unlimited. I need free skates, and I'm gonna need probably $100 a game. Thinking like, there's no way they are gonna this is senior hockey, and they're like, done. So I'm like, whoa, wait, hold on. Maybe
you
I
said,
needed,
"No, I gotta triple
maybe I
that."
needed, yeah, I needed $200 a game. So
It came too cheap.
I did it for about 3 or 4 months, and I got my new skates, I got sticks, and I wanted to set myself up for coaching where at least I had some material and some cash. But that was it. That was the 1 year with the Vipers,
Okay.
and then
and that's just before the real McCoys.
right.
Okay. But I just to say, you know, to have it on your, like, I went to your NHL.com, like,
Yeah.
you know, it's all there
Yeah.
or whatever, and to see Tilsonburg Vipers there, it's like, I got to find out what the hell are these Tilsonburg Vipers. But
Well, I was a stay-at-home dad too, because when I came back from Germany, my wife was working, and I was like, I can only go to the park so often and watch my 2-year-old go down the slide and walk him to Tim Hortons. So I said, I need something. So that was my vice as a.
and you need to wean yourself off this competitive.
You got it.
Sport. And that's where the winning this Allen Cup, your third major trophy of the Dundas Real McCoys. Wow. Okay. So I do have a big question for you here as we kind of start to wind down. But like, any regrets? Like, do you regret any of this? Like, I read this book and all this stuff, and it's kind of fascinating to take down the curtain and kind of show us us civilians, as you would call us, like what it was like. But any regrets?
No, I don't think so. When all this Hockey Canada stuff was coming out, my dad said, if I had known what had happened to you, I probably would have come up and picked you up and gone home. And I said, I wouldn't have gone, Dad. Like, I was so far ingrained in this, and if you think you were going to take me away after I'd been drafted or all these things, so regret wise, I don't. And I think writing this book and talking to you is with people reaching out, and now we're in the process of starting a hockey foundation for the underserved in Guelph, and I've got Hockey Canada, and we've got some partners joining. I feel like all the crap I went through is for a purpose and for something to happen. When you talk about your kids playing house league,
yeah,
I run a adult hockey school through Can-Am Hockey, and there's nothing better than watching a 60-year-old woman from Nashville come and learn to play hockey and raise the puck for the first time, and the joy. So I've realized like what I love about hockey, and I want people to discover the game. I just get so frustrated with the parents who are just like destroying their kids for the NHL dream. So my regrets, I think, are just that I'd love to do. I hope people read the book. Like, I'm not a self-promoter, but I hope people read the book.
Well, tell if
they
somebody
see what it's
listening
like.
now wants to read Conflicted Scars, okay, and I hope many FOTMs listening do. Do you have a preference for how they get a copy, or you're like, just find it? Like, how do you get Conflicted Scars, an average player's journey to the NHL?
Well, most people go through Amazon because it's the easiest thing. They don't have to step foot off their couch, and it gets delivered to the door. The other options are it's at Indigo. So Indigo has been a great partner with this. And lastly, my publisher, ECW Press, as well sells it. So obviously I won't know people. The easiest is selling it in person, but yeah, if they order off there and recommend other people. I mean, I've realized in the writing the book business is that you are not going to make very much money off this, and this is not going to be a life changer, but I'm hoping that what's in the book and what people read, and even talking today, that people just discover what's actually how they can change hockey culture and how they can help.
Well, Justin, this is Canada. Like, our only hope is it doesn't cost you money to write a book, right? Like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I know.
Like, Stephen Brunt came over and we were talking. He said, Mike, the only books that make money in Canada, it has to be about hockey. So you're on the right track, but it has to be about hockey, and it has to be available for Christmas. Like, that's the only chance you have of making money as an author in Canada. So
Right. But then you can't book in at bookstores and before Christmas because there's so many people wanting to get in. And I look at my book and it's on the bottom shelf at Indigo.
well, you got to write about
turned
Sidney
sideways.
Crosby. That's why.
That's right. No one wants to hear a bad story. They just want the positive.
But listen. Toronto Mike enjoyed your book very much, and I'm so glad you made the trek here. We have touched on some things that have hopefully changed. Like, we talked about the blatant racism, and I mean the homophobia, and this ridiculous like fascination with like nudity, humiliation. I don't know what to call it, but with the hazing and stuff. Like, hopefully we're starting to weed a lot of this out of the game. And now, of course, Hockey Canada has its slush fund for paying off like the victims of sexual assault and all this horrible stuff we're hearing about. But like, if you, Justin Davis, like, and this is a big question, so you can tell me, like, Mike, I'm tapping out, I don't have 90 minutes, but how would you fix hockey? Here we are talking in 2022, almost 2023. How would you fix hockey? It seems broken.
Well, I think that's a question. That's where Hockey Canada's reached out. And I mean, hockey's not supposed to be for the World Juniors and for people making the NHL. The Hockey Canada's role is to introduce people to hockey, make it affordable, accessibility to more people, make it diverse, make it equitable, so that people can discover the game. And if they become good players through there, then that's fantastic. But should this be playing in the GTHL at $18,000 a year, 12 months a year with your skating coach, your mental skills coach, and your nutritionist? That's not where hockey was supposed to be. So to change the culture, that's why we're introducing this program in Guelph, where we're just getting communities that don't play hockey, would never try it, and make it affordable so they can try it. Because people don't have $2,000 to discover if they like it. Like no one's saying, oh, you want to try something? Oh, it's going to be $3,000. See if you like it. So we're trying to make it accessible. And I think that's where Hockey Canada has to reach out. And then with that, we have to develop community, positive culture, make it a positive experience. And when it looks diverse, when you see people that don't look like you out on the ice and you see other people, then it's easier and then the racism and the slurs disappear. But when you go out in the game and every player you play against is white, it's
awfully white. Like I will say, my oldest son, who played house league and at George Bell actually, and loved his career, white dude, okay, like me, like you, okay. But my youngest, he's at Mimico Arena, and so far so good. It's early in his house league career. He's only 8 years old, but he's enjoying. We have a practice tomorrow morning, and we got a double header on Sunday. Okay, a couple of games we're gonna be playing. But he's actually not a white guy. So it's like I'm sort of conscious of like, oh, I hope this is okay for him. Because I will say hockey seems to be awfully lily white. And I wish it was as diverse as these other sports that...
Well, so our school, we're partnered with Athlete Institute Basketball Academy, where Jamal Murray taught Jamal Murray and Thon Maker and some other NBA players. And you realize like how we'd play volleyball in class and we play floor high. These kids pick it up like that. So the people playing in the NHL aren't the best athletes. They're just the ones that have the most money and the most accessible. Our best athletes are going to sports like soccer and basketball, where it's affordable and there's an entry point. So when you talk about culture changing, I think it's just I love when, like I talk about the Idle Hockey Camp, I love when people discover the game and it's just so raw, and that's what it should be. Like your son should look forward to going out for breakfast, playing a doubleheader, coming back, playing some road hockey and calling it a day. Like that's what hockey is. It's not going with the mental skills coach at 9 years old before you go to your power skill and then you have chicken and rice for lunch, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
Amazing. Thanks for writing this book, buddy. I want to just quickly here before we wrap up for real, I want to shout out a couple of wonderful podcasts. Beyond this one, Toronto Mic'd, the Yes We Are Open podcast is hosted by FOTM Al Grego. They're in season 3. It's award nominated. I believe it won. It's an award-winning podcast, okay? Al's been traveling the country interviewing small Canadian businesses, and he tells the story of their origin, their struggles, and their future outlook. So go to yesweareopenpodcast.com, subscribe to Yes We Are Open Podcast, and Chris Cooksey's got a great podcast for Raymond James Canada called The Advantaged Investor. Chris Cooksey, by the way, the father of a young man who is dreaming of the NHL. So I'm really hopeful Chris Cooksey listens to this conversation. But The Advantaged Investor provides valuable perspective for Canadian investors who want to remain knowledgeable, informed, and focused on long-term success. So Justin Davis, amazing to have this conversation with you. Again, you don't leave here without your lasagna. And even though it's pitch dark outside, we're still taking a photo by the tree. People just have to trust that it's us in that photo, because it's going to be pretty dark out there. But thanks for coming, man. This was great.
Perfect. Thanks for having me.
Speaking of 90s alt rock, here's a little Lowest of the Low playing us out. And that brings us to the end of our 1171st show. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Toronto Mike. Justin, are you on any social media? Is there any way we can follow your adventures?
Yeah, I'm on Davis12, so DAHVIS 12, and that's at Instagram and on Twitter.
Until Elon blows it up, you're there, just like
that's
me.
Right.
We're going to go down with the ship. Our friends at Great Lakes Brewery are at Great Lakes Beer. I've got some beer for you on your way out. Palma Pasta is at Palma Pasta. You get the lasagna. Sticker U is at Sticker U. Moneris is at Moneris. Raymond James Canada are at Raymond James CDN. Recycle My Electronics are at EPRA_Canada. Ridley Funeral Home are at Ridley FH. Canna Cabana are at Canna Cabana_. And Sammy Cohn Real Estate is at Sammy Cohn. That's KOHN. See you all Sunday when my special guests are the duo from Altered by Mom. Great band I saw at the Alma Combo when I went to see Ron Hawkins from Lowest to the Low. And they blew my mind, and they're going to be here talking about their music. And I can't wait. That's Sunday. See you all then.
It's been 8 years of laughter and 8 years of tears. And I don't know what the future can hold or will do for me and you. But I'm a much better man for having known you. Oh, you know that's true because everything is coming up rosy and green. Yeah, the wind is cold, but the smell of snow warms me today. And your smile is fine, and it's just like mine, and it won't go away. 'Cause everything is rosy and green. Well, I've been told that there's a sucker born every day. But I wonder who. Yeah, I wonder who. Maybe the one who doesn't realize there's 1,000 shades of gray. 'Cause I know that's true, yes I do. I know it's true, yeah. I know it's true. How about you? Oh, they're picking up trash and they're putting down roads. And they're brokering stocks, the class struggle explodes. And I'll play this guitar just the best that I can. Well, maybe I'm not and maybe I am. Ah, who gives a damn? Because everything is coming up rosy and green. Yeah, the wind is cold, but the smell of snow warms me today. And your smile is fine, and it's just like mine, and it won't go away. 'Cause everything is rosy and green. Well, I've kissed you in France, and I've kissed you in Spain. And I've kissed you in places I better not name. And I've seen the sun go down on Sacré-Cœur. But I like it much better going down on you. Yeah, you know that's true because everything is coming up rosy and green. Yeah, the wind is cold, but the smell of snow warms us today.